In summer, many gardeners only worry about tomato plants wilting, vegetables getting leaf scorch, and the soil in garden beds drying out too quickly. But if you have a chicken coop near your vegetable garden, there is an even quieter problem happening every day. When the summer heat builds up inside the coop, the air inside does not just get hotter. The bedding starts to smell. The ammonia vapor becomes heavier. Chickens pant with open beaks, spread their wings, and stand still, because moving makes them even more tired. And the uncomfortable part is that the smell does not stop inside the coop. It can spread into the garden, making every time you step outside to water vegetables or harvest feel stuffy and suffocating. Many people think the only solution is to buy large fans or run electricity all day. But that is not cheap, especially when you have to use it through the hottest weeks of summer. The electric bill goes up, filters have to be replaced regularly, and if the chicken coop is out in the garden, running electricity out there is not always convenient. There is a very simple principle I learned from the Amish-Style self-reliant way of living. Before depending on machines, look at what wind, water, and one inexpensive material can do. And today, I will show you a way that can help a chicken coop near the garden become slightly cooler, less smelly, more cost-saving, and almost without electricity. A lesson from the Amish way of self-reliant living. With the problem above, we need a method that is simple, inexpensive, and does not require running electricity all the way out to the chicken coop. I learned from the Amish a very practical way of thinking. Before buying more machines, make use of what is already available around you. With a hot and smelly chicken coop, the most important thing is not cooling the entire area. The important thing is treating the airflow entering the coop. If the air coming in is already less hot and less smelly, the inside of the coop will feel much more comfortable. And to do that, we will use a very cheap, easy-to-buy material, but one that many people place in the wrong spot, making it almost useless: activated charcoal. The main material is activated charcoal. After understanding that we need to treat the airflow entering the coop, the main material in this method is activated charcoal. This is a type of charcoal that has been processed so that inside it there are many tiny pores. These tiny pores create a very large surface area, helping the charcoal hold odors, unpleasant moisture, and part of the volatile compounds in the air. You can find this type in the aquarium filter section, pet supplies section, air filtration section, or sometimes in the gardening section under the name horticultural charcoal. You should choose loose granular charcoal, not powder that is too fine, because granules allow air to pass through more easily and create less dust. The important thing is not to use BBQ charcoal. Charcoal briquettes used for grilling meat, also called BBQ briquettes, are usually pressed together with binders or additives. It does not work like activated charcoal, does not filter odors as well as activated charcoal, and is not suitable for placing in the airflow of a chicken coop. The reason activated charcoal is used in this method is very simple. It has been used in many water filters, air purifiers, and odor-removing bags because of its ability to hold odors and some irritating substances. Here, we are using that same principle, but in a cheaper and simpler way for a chicken coop near a vegetable garden. Why wet charcoal can slightly cool the air. After choosing the right activated charcoal, the next step is to understand why we need to wet it. The principle here is very simple. When water evaporates, it takes away some heat from the air. You can imagine it like when the body sweats. If there is no wind, you only feel hot and humid. But when wind blows across your skin, sweat evaporates faster, and you feel cooler. Activated charcoal has many tiny pores inside, so it can hold moisture quite well. When we wet a charcoal layer about 1 to 2 inches thick, then let airflow pass across that damp charcoal surface, part of the water will evaporate. This evaporation process takes some heat out of the airflow, making the air entering the coop slightly cooler. But we need to be clear. This is not an air conditioner. In dry areas like Arizona or New Mexico, the effect may be easier to notice. In humid areas like Florida or Louisiana, the temperature drop is usually lighter, maybe only about 1 to 3 degrees Fahrenheit depending on conditions. So the goal of this method is not to cool the entire coop, but to help the incoming airflow become less hot, less heavy with odor, and easier to breathe. How to make a damp, activated charcoal tray. Because damp charcoal can help make the airflow slightly cooler, now we will make the most important part, the damp activated charcoal tray. You do not need complicated equipment. Prepare a shallow tray, a low wooden box, or a small frame with mesh. For a backyard chicken coop, an easy size to use is about 12 by 18 inches, or larger if the ventilation opening is wide. The tray walls only need to be about 2 to 3 inches high. Next, pour granular activated charcoal into the tray. The charcoal layer should be about 1 to 2 inches thick. Do not make it too thin, because it will dry out very quickly. But also do not make it too deep, because air will have trouble passing through, and the lower part can easily hold standing water. Then use clean water and pour it slowly over the charcoal layer. There is no need to pour strongly. Water the surface evenly so the entire charcoal layer becomes damp. After watering, wait about 3 to 5 minutes so the charcoal can absorb water into the tiny pores inside. Now, gently tilt the tray and pour off the excess water. This is a very important step. The charcoal should not sit in a puddle of water. The goal is to make the charcoal evenly damp, like a wrung-out sponge. If you use a mesh frame to place at the ventilation opening, use fine mesh or hardware cloth to keep the charcoal from falling out. With this setup, the charcoal should sit neatly inside a frame about 1 to 2 inches thick, with both sides open so air can pass through. And remember one small point. Activated charcoal often has black dust. When pouring it into the tray, handle it gently, avoid breathing in the dust, and do not use powder that is too fine because it can easily blow into the coop. The best type for this method is loose granules, small enough to hold moisture, but large enough for air to still pass through. Place it in the right airflow, or it will be almost useless. After making the damp activated charcoal tray, do not rush to place it just anywhere inside the coop. This is the mistake that makes many people try it, and then say, "This method doesn't work." In reality, the problem is usually not the charcoal. The problem is the path of the air. If you place the charcoal tray in the middle of the chicken coop, in the middle of a room, or in a garden corner with no airflow, it will almost just sit there. It can only treat the air that directly touches it, but it cannot pull all the heat and ammonia smell in the coop toward itself. The correct way is to place the charcoal tray where air enters the coop. That could be a ventilation opening, a small window, an intake gap, or near the coop door if that is the main wind direction. Think of it simply like this. The charcoal tray must sit on the path that air is forced to pass through. If the wind goes one way and the charcoal tray sits in another corner, the effect will be very low. The goal is to let air pass through, or at least move closely across, the damp charcoal layer before entering the inside of the coop. Only then does the charcoal tray truly become part of the ventilation flow instead of just sitting there like a decoration. If you have a small solar-powered fan, you can place it to pull air through the charcoal tray, but a fan is not required. With a coop that has open ventilation and a steady natural wind direction, simply placing it in the right spot can already make a difference. So the key is not placing as much charcoal as possible. The key is placing it in the right spot, directly in the path of moving air. Practical applications, from chicken coops and vegetable gardens to small backyard gardens. After you understand how to make a damp-activated charcoal tray and why it must be placed in the right airflow path, the next question is, where can this method be used in a real garden? The answer is, it is not only for chicken coops. If you keep chickens in your backyard, especially in summer, you will notice a very clear problem. The chicken coop does not only get hotter, but manure smell, moisture, and stale air can also easily spread into the surrounding area. If the coop is placed near the vegetable garden, near a walkway, or near the place where you often work in the garden, that feeling becomes even more uncomfortable. This is where the damp-activated charcoal tray can become a simple support tool. It does not turn the chicken coop into a cold room. But if it is placed where airflow enters the coop, it can help make the air a little more comfortable before it passes through the chicken area. This is especially suitable for homestead-style gardeners, where the chicken coop, vegetable garden, compost bin, straw storage area, and shed are often close together. When one area becomes hot, stale, or smelly, it does not only affect the animals, but also affects your whole gardening experience. For example, if the chicken coop is right next to the vegetable garden, you can use the damp-activated charcoal tray as a support layer at the ventilation opening or coop door. If you have a small rabbit hutch, tool shed, seedling area, or compost corner, the same principle applies. Only use it where air can pass through, and do not use it in a closed space. For a small backyard garden, patio garden, or container garden, this method can still be applied, but the goal needs to be more realistic. You are not using it to cool the entire garden. You use it for a small corner that is hot, stale, or smelly, such as near a mini compost bin, a soil storage area, a seedling area, or a place with a few vegetable pots under a roof overhang. With a balcony or a container garden against a wall, the air often becomes still easily, especially in the afternoon. A small charcoal tray may help somewhat if there is a breeze moving through that area. But it does not replace shade, spacing between pots, watering at the right time, and mulch on top of the containers. The important point is not to see this method as a magic trick. Look at it like the way Amish people often approach a problem. Before thinking about machines, look at where the wind comes from, where the sun hits, what materials are available, and how to improve the space in the simplest way. With a chicken coop, you still have to prioritize good ventilation, shade, cool drinking water, and dry bedding or flooring. With a vegetable garden, you still need mulch, deep watering, afternoon shade if needed, and keeping the soil from getting too hot. The damp-activated charcoal tray is only one small part of that whole system. In short, this method is suitable for chicken coops, rabbit hutches, small sheds, seedling areas, compost corners, container gardens, patio gardens, and even small backyard homesteads. As long as you remember the right principle, there must be airflow passing through. The charcoal should be damp, but not soaked in water. And this is a support solution, not an air conditioner, and not a replacement for caring for animals on hot days. Limits and safety warnings. Before applying this method, there is one very important thing to understand clearly. A damp-activated charcoal tray does not give the same effect everywhere. In drier climates, when water evaporates quickly, the cooling feeling may be a little more noticeable. But if you live in hot and humid states like Florida, Louisiana, or Mississippi, the air already contains a lot of moisture. In that case, water evaporates more slowly, so the cooling effect will be lighter. That does not mean this method is useless. In humid areas, the main benefit is usually not strong cooling, but reducing odor and keeping the air more comfortable around the chicken coop, compost area, or small garden space. But do not use it the wrong way either. You should not place a large amount of damp charcoal in a closed room, sealed shed, or coop with no ventilation opening. Damp charcoal plus stagnant air can make the space even more humid, stale, and uncomfortable. The safest way is to use it only where air is moving, an open door, a ventilation opening, an air gap, or an area with natural airflow. If there is no airflow, this method almost loses its effect. So see this as a small support tool during hot weather, not a replacement for ventilation, shade, cool drinking water, and proper animal care. Maintenance and conclusion. To make this method last longer, you need to see the charcoal tray as a material that needs care, not something you place once and then forget. On hot days, check it in the morning. If the charcoal has dried out, simply add a little clean water to make it damp again. Do not pour in so much that water collects at the bottom of the tray. The charcoal only needs to be evenly damp, not soaked in water. After some time of use, if you see that the charcoal has collected too much dust, manure, or organic debris, or no longer reduces odor as well as it did at first, that is when you should replace it. You can also place the charcoal tray in the sun to dry it out, helping reduce odor and limit mold. But understand this correctly. Sun drying does not make activated charcoal return completely to like-new condition. The final lesson here is very simple. Smart gardening is not always about buying bigger fans, air purifiers, or expensive equipment. Sometimes simply understanding how wind moves, how water evaporates, how porous materials hold moisture, and where to place them can already help you improve a small corner of your chicken coop or garden. That is also the spirit worth learning from a self-reliant way of living. Use less, understand more, and make better use of what you already have.